hope that she's right. All right, Dick Barton, the first Brit to dive to the Titanic and a friend of the missing sub-pilot, now joins me on the programme. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us, sir. And I just wonder what your response is to this breaking news about the debris field.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me on tonight. I think there's a number of points we need to be very clear on, and conjecture has been from the get-go an issue. Forever, always hope, because the rescue organisations are always hopeful. And having been in that environment down there, I can't even imagine what it would be like if the guys were still having to endure and survive within the actual Titan itself. And we heard before about the reference to debris field, and I think that's very misleading. You have a debris field for the Titanic, which is basically where all the artifacts and the contents of the actual wreck and the Titanic lay over 1.5 mile area, of which I've dived repeatedly 22 times and know the area extremely well, and as well as PH Marjolais. To say there is debris in a field is another term, and a debris in the field is very much like an F1 crash, and it's very important to be explicit on this. And those pictures from the ROV, from the seabed, will be relayed real time to the mothership through the umbilical system and be analysed immediately. The digitization and the quality of any imagery these days is extraordinary, and also the surface communications. So I'm sure any conclusive evidence will be very quickly assimilated and determined.
Tell me a little about your Titanic dives, if you wouldn't mind, sir. I'd like to know why you do it. I'd like to know what it's like when you do it, and I'd like to know why it is you've done it so very many times. What is calling to you?
So it's very important to determine. We are a professional organisation of commercial divers and deep sea explorers, and as a consequence, that's what our profession is. That's what we do. And when we go on our missions, and particularly when I was working with Army's Titanic as the right of salver, the guardian of the wreck, we were charged with looking after the wreck, ensuring her state was monitored and catalogued, recovered artifacts, and from worldwide exhibition. In the case of Ocean Gate, it's very much a tourist trip, and the fascination of Titanic lives on. She's been immortalised, she's been romanticised and portrayed in many ways over the years. So I think, not to have justified by any means, what we did was a calculated risk, and we did it under control of all of those risks. But the operation that Ocean Gate operated is obviously a little more risky and less controlled, I'll say.
Is it true that when you get down to the Titanic, almost everything is covered in mud and is not visible? So there may be beautiful china, there may be sparkling chandeliers, there may be jewels worn by some of the female passengers, but you can't see them. What you can really see is a thick, very sludgy layer of mud. Is that true?
No, I think that's an unfair portrayal, really. But as you arrive at the wreck site, you put your lights on because there's no ambient light. I work out where you are, the relation to the wreck, the two halves of the wreck, and in the debris field, and you start to see the most extraordinary artifacts lying on the seabed. You're hovering above the seabed, probably about 10 feet, looking through portholes and externally mounted cameras, and you are trying to navigate. Also, obviously, avoid any kind of collision with any particular obstacles down there. But artifacts are very clearly identified. I mean, you start to develop a skill and ability to be able to do so. And you can recognise the strangest looking artifact in the most peculiar circumstance and situation. But we have picked up some of the remarkable, beautiful artifacts, mainly pieces of jewellery, which are in bags, Gladstone bags, right across to a 10-ton piece of hull.
And Dick, you're a friend of the missing sub-pilot. Is that because you are colleagues and you've worked together? And what kind of an individual is he?
We started this all off. Dr. Ballard found the wreck in '85, subsequently died in '87. Then we first started diving as an organisation in '93, and that was with IFTRA and PH headed up the underwater research, and as a particularly competent and extraordinarily able ex-naval submariner and also explorer. He was a great mentor to me. He was a great guide to me, inspiration, and I held him in the highest respect, esteem. And you know, we still hope that there may be a glimmer of hope, as we saw there from a family member, that they might be able to recover these guys. But he's an incredibly resilient and strong-minded individual.
I have to break some news to you. These are reports that are being broadcast currently, and they are saying that the debris that's being analysed is from Titan, and they say that among those things found is a landing frame. Obviously, this is you know, desperately sad news to all the people around the world, praying that this wasn't going to be the result of this incredibly gripping and absolutely harrowing story. But Dick, I'm breaking this news to you. We hear reports saying this. It's the first time we've heard this, a landing frame and other parts of Titan. I'm very sorry to have to tell you this. Obviously, we can't really confirm or corroborate it, but it definitely is being broadcast and being said. So I wonder what you're feeling now.
And we always prepare for this, don't we? We knew that, to say, the submersible was in the water column, an hour, 3/4 into the projectile, launched down, and was easily at that stage at 3,500 meters. And there were reports which we got offline elsewhere that there was a detected noise at that time, which could have been correlated to implosion. And at that depth, at that particular pressure, then the submersible would have imploded and not exploded, and would have been relatively intact. But the frame is the main landing frame, and then obviously the most robust part of the vessel. The rest is obviously pieces of carbon fiber and titanium. Yeah, it's the reality of what happens and what deep sea exploration threatens to do to you if you don't manage those risks.
I'm very, very sorry indeed to be the person to tell you this, even though I say it in a position whereby we can't really confirm it yet, but certainly it's being said with varying degrees of emphasis and you know, confirmation at the moment. So thank you, Dick Barton, very much indeed.